From the sun-bleached posters of Tinseltown to the silver screens in every American living room, Hollywood built a legend of towering heroes and glamorous leading ladies. Yet behind the glitz lay a carefully guarded secret. Many of your favorite stars were much shorter than you ever imagined. Studio executives spent fortunes digging trenches into outdoor sets, crafting custom elevator shoes, and insisting co-stars never rise above an arbitrary height limit, all to preserve the illusion that bigger always meant better. These weren't isolated stunts of vanity. They were calculated gambits designed to convince Depression-era audiences that Hollywood's heroes were literal giants among men. Just 5 feet 2 inches, Mickey Rooney shattered that myth. Long before he became Hollywood's highest-paid star, Mickey was an MGM novelty, so small he could pass for a teenager well into his 20s. Yet when he donned the grin of Andy Hardy, his boundless energy and boyish charm turned a string of modest family comedies into a cultural phenomenon. Between 1939 and 1941, he out-earned Clark Gable, Gary Cooper, and Cary Grant combined. Audiences saw optimism in every wink. They saw hope in every pratfall. At the height of the Depression, Andy Hardy's triumphs felt like their own. When World War II called him away, Mickey returned a combat veteran with a Bronze Star, only to discover Hollywood still saw him as eternally undersized. Casting notes bluntly read, "height problem," and romantic leads grew scarce. His weekly paycheck plummeted. Yet fate intervened through grit. 2 consecutive Oscar nominations for supporting roles as hardened trainers, where his compact frame no longer seemed a gag but a symbol of toughness. Then Francis Ford Coppola cast him as a jockey in The Black Stallion, finally the perfect fit. At last, Rooney's deficiency became a defining asset, earning him critical praise and reminding the world that no one could count Mickey out. Which of these Hollywood legends' struggles would you least expect? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to know what you think. If anyone knew how to turn limitation into triumph, it was Sammy Davis Jr. Standing just 5 feet 3 inches, he braved segregated nightclubs as a teenager, dazzled audiences as a one-eyed, multi-talented performer, and refused to let height, race, or missing eye define him. By the time he cracked Broadway with Golden Boy in 1964, paired with a statuesque Swedish co-star, he owned every inch of that stage. He trained relentlessly for boxing scenes, demanded lighting that threw his shadow across the entire proscenium, and conquered critics who doubted a short black Jew could headline a major musical. Vegas eventually learned the same lesson. By 1968, Davis was commanding $35,000 a night, integrating rooms by contract, and raising nearly $1 million for civil rights causes in a single year. On the opposite side of town, James Cagney, officially listed at 5 feet 9 inches but more likely 5 feet 5 inches, fought his own battles. Early in his career, he was filmed only from the waist up, placed on crates, or cast beside shorter actresses. Yet he channeled every ounce of perceived weakness into raw screen electricity. In Public Enemy, he burst onto the scene with such violent precision that audiences forgot his stature. When studio bosses balked at equal pay, Cagney drove a golf cart over to Jack Warner's towering desk and proclaimed himself worth the same as any Gable or Robinson. Warner relented. Later, directors choreographed White Heat's explosive climax around his needle-thin frame, and viewers were riveted by a performance no taller actor could have delivered without scraping his head on the scenery. Edward G. Robinson arrived in New York at 10, speaking only Yiddish and Romanian, and he stood 5 feet 5 inches. Audiences expected a slight immigrant face, but in Little Caesar he morphed into Rico Bondello, a gangster whose menace transcended every inch of him. Time magazine raved that his compact form fills the screen with menace, and Warner Brothers hurried to inflate his height in press releases. But business never suffered. A $280,000 budget in 1931 tripled in revenue, and Robinson negotiated script approval usually reserved for Hollywood's tallest stars. Screen, he volunteered with USO tours, jesting that a 5 feet 5 inches target makes enemy gunners miss half the time. Behind the joke lay genuine courage. Over $250,000 in anti-fascist donations and an art collection valued at millions. Then there was Charlie Chaplin, barely 5 feet 5 inches himself, who donned oversized pants, a tiny bowler, and a cane to become the Tramp. He looked vulnerable on purpose, a child in ill-fitting adult clothes, begging the audience's sympathy. But each stumble, each pratfall was ingenious choreography. His silent films sparked laughter that quickly turned to empathy, making viewers root for a hero who seemed too small to matter. Cinema historians later noted that his shorter frame saved studios money on film stock, but it did far more. It forged an intimate bond, proved by a Columbia University study recording viewers' physiological spikes of protectiveness whenever his tramp was bullied. In 1919, Chaplin co-founded United Artists on the principle that physical inches matter less than creative control, a creed he lived by well into his half-billion-dollar fortune. Buster Keaton, just as diminutive, endured a childhood of brutal vaudeville training, his father literally tossing him around the stage so he would master falling safely. That pain became cinematic gold. On screen, his 5 feet 5 inches center of gravity made him exceptionally stable, allowing him to perform stunts no taller actor dared attempt. He slid under a 4,000-pound facade in Steamboat Bill Jr. with inches to spare, fractured his neck performing a train water tower gag, and built a reputation as the Great Stone Face, never cracking his poker face amid chaos. His silent comedies remain marvels of physical artistry, and when television revived his career decades later, a new generation fell in love with his stoic brilliance. No tall directors surrounded Peter Lorre, but they knew how to wield his 5 feet 5 inches frame like a warning bell. In Fritz Lang's M, Lorre portrayed a child killer whose twitching eyes and panicked voice riveted Berlin. Rumors of Lorre sightings sent rioters running, and Hitchcock scooped him up for the man who knew too much. Posters famously juxtaposed his small, hunched figure against towering co-stars, and ticket sales spiked, reportedly up 22% whenever his name appeared above the title. Lorre never downplayed his stature. He leaned into its unsettling charm and became one of cinema's most unforgettable villains. Burgess Meredith stood only 5 foot 5 1/2 inch, yet a single command from the stage, "Project like you're shouting across Times Square," earned him 29 curtain calls on his Broadway debut. He parlayed that vocal power into Oscar-nominated turns, raised morale on frontline tours in North Africa, and then survived the blacklist by becoming an invisible radio star. When he resurfaced as the Penguin on Batman, his top hat and beak-like makeup made him loom larger than life, setting the stage for his final triumph as Mickey Rocky's grizzled trainer. In a film shot for $1 million, his scathing line, "You're gonna eat lightning and crap thunder," helped earn $225 million worldwide and a final Academy nod. And then there was Lou Costello, 5 feet 5 inches of frenetic energy, whose partnership with the 6-foot Bud Abbott became the most profitable contrast act in history. Lou's pen-sized frame demanded every pratfall be more dramatic, every trip more spectacular. When Buck Privates returned over $10 million on a $180,000 budget, Lou's status was cemented. Audiences loved the frantic, roly-poly boy and his high-pitched screams. Yet he also bore real tragedy. On the night he learned his infant son had drowned, he went on stage and delivered the full "Who's on first" routine without missing a beat, hiding heartbreak until the lights dimmed. That strength only deepened his legend. Finally, Alan Ladd, rumored around 5 feet 5 inches despite studio flyers claiming 5 feet 6 inches, rose to fame as the cool, silent type. Twice a year he received custom 2-inch elevator boots, and Paramount's contracts famously demanded directors dig trenches or build platforms whenever his co-star exceeded 5 feet 4 inches. On Shane, they excavated over 1,200 feet of set and shelled out what would now be $100,000 just to keep him visually level. Far from embarrass him, every whispered mention of trenches and boxes only added to his mystique. To box office, Ladd became one of America's top 10 stars, out-earning even 6 feet 4 inches Gary Cooper. Audiences adored the little gunfighter who refused to bow to giants. These legends prove that Hollywood's obsession with height was never more than smoke and mirrors. Every trench dug, every shoe lifted, only underscored a deeper truth. Greatness isn't measured in inches above the ground but in the impact one leaves on audiences. From Rooney to Ladd, these actors turned a perceived disadvantage into their greatest asset, reminding us that sometimes the smallest figures cast the biggest shadows. Clickbait title: How Hollywood's shortest stars became its biggest legends.